I wanted to give you a chance to see my family. This picture of my family last summer. We do this every 4 or 5 years. We get the entire family together to go on some memory building trip. And you can see the Swiss Alps in the background. And we're at the top of the mountain called Chamonix in France. And I have 6 children, 3 of them married. And this just gives you a little glimpse of my family. This is just a little visual picture of what Tommy was talking about of our various companies. We have a lot of different companies in our family office. Our family office is primarily direct investing of owning companies. And many of these companies I partner with other people on. In all cases, we have built teams within these companies. So I want to tell you about my first team. My first team, I didn't select them and they didn't select me. I've heard it said that you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. I don't know if you guys have heard that saying before. You can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. Well, the same is true. You can't always pick your team. Sometimes you inherit your team. I'm sure most of you have experienced something like that, where, whether it's you're replacing someone or you're coming into a new job, something happens and you have a team and now you're leading this team. And so, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about that first team that I had and what I walked into. So I walked into a company that my dad had funded and hired some people to go start. And so about 9 months into it, he finds out that these guys he had hired to get it started and run it had committed a bunch of fraud. They had stolen money from him. They had stolen money from the bank. The auditors said, this is a mess. And so he had to fire all those guys. I was in my last year of law school and MBA school. And that's what I walked into when I graduated from university and graduate school. And so these people, as you can imagine, the company operators, the people that were operating these various offices around the United States, are wondering. They've had no leadership for 6 months. They're wondering, who is this guy who's fresh out of school, who's 26 years old, and we've never met him. He doesn't know anything about our industry, and we have no trust in anybody anymore. We're just trying to do our job, stay in our lane, stay in our silo, and hope that we don't lose our jobs. Meanwhile, I'm sure they were all out looking for a job as well. And so I walk into an environment that is losing $100,000 a month and negative cash flowing $200,000 a month. And this is back in 1984. So it's a lot of money now, but it was a real lot of money 36 years ago. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I good at fresh out of school? What can these people do? And how do we stay focused on getting something accomplished and putting some sort of a team together? Well, I had a 2-pronged approach. One was stay in my competency, which was finance and law and accounting, and stop the bleeding there, and then assemble a team. And so I had the competency side down, but what I had to do was I had to figure out, how do I assemble a team? There were 40 offices spread all over the United States. And I had to figure out, how do I get from these 40 offices some team of leadership established and some team that could help me direct the entire company going forward. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to start with building trust. The first thing that we need to do when we walk into a team, when we inherit a team, is we need to build trust. There needs to be trust, me to them first, and then I want to make sure that there's trust among the people on the team. But all I can control initially, right, is my building trust with them. And so I think the things that are crucial to building trust starts one with humility. I told the group of managers, these 30 or 40 people around the country that were reporting to me, that I knew a few things that they didn't know. And I told them there were a whole lot of things that I didn't know that they did know. And so what I want to establish there is, look, you all know how to operate what you're doing. You are in your position because you're the best we have in that position doing what you're doing. I'm really good at what I do. Let's work together. And so instead of me pretending like I know what in the world they're doing on a day-to-day basis, I readily admit I don't know what you do. That's not my job. My job is to do what I'm good at, and your job is to do what you're good at. And so there's a sense of humility that needs to take place from a leader. And I started there, which it wasn't very difficult because I was 26 years old and I had no clue about the industry that I was about to engage in. The next thing is that what I tried to do was create a sense of inclusion. So what I mean by that is that I want to cast a big net out there to figure out who do I want to funnel down into my core team. So if I've got 40 offices, each with a general manager in each office, what I did was I tried to get to know all 40 of those people. I brought them in so I could understand them. And then from there, I could pick out which were the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 that were really crucial to helping me lead going forward. Who were the people that had influence with the others, the other 35 or so? So if I got 5, who are the 5 that will influence the other 35? And so that's what I was looking for. But to start with that, I didn't know, just because they have a position, that didn't mean they were necessarily the right person to give leadership within the core team. So I cast a wide net to see who are these people, who do I connect with, who do I see them connecting with each other. So the idea of casting a big net, being inclusive when you first walk in to see who are going to be those leaders that you want to bring into your core team. The next aspect that is really important is competency. What are you good at? What I was good at was accounting, finance, and law. When we walk into a new organization and we are inheriting this team, we need to be very clear about what we're really good at. So I want to make sure that I'm displaying my competencies and my strengths. And I want to encourage others to do the same. I want to encourage them to be people that are staying in their strengths and their competencies. But it starts with me as the leader displaying my competencies and making those clear. And as I said, with humility, making clear what I'm not competent at, not faking it like I get it all, but relying on others. Because what can help build a team is when people feel like they're an important part of it. If I'm a know-it-all, if I think I have to be the smartest person in the room, then what happens is everybody else thinks, well, geez, what am I, just chopped liver? I must not be that important if he seems to know it all. So what I want to do is I want to draw on their competencies. I want to draw on their strengths and draw them out so that they're giving their best for the team and for each other. The final thing that was really crucial is I need to build support. I need to find things that make them feel supported. I want them to feel as though I am with them. I totally support them. I can remember there was one time where I got all of the folks on the leadership team together, and I said, for you and your people, what's something that you do daily, weekly, that you think brings no value to the organization. Write 2 or 3 things down. And so they wrote down 2 or 3 things. And we found one thing that was taking each manager of an office an hour a week to do, but we could not figure out any value that it brought. We've been doing it for years. We thought it made a whole bunch of sense, but when it got right down to it, it brought no value. And so what I said is fine, let's get rid of that. And then we stopped doing it. So now people feel like, wow, he's supporting me in the way I need to lead the organization, the way I need to run my office, the way I need to lead as a person in this organization. And so we need them to feel support. Look for something small, maybe big, where they can feel your support. Maybe it's they've got one of their computers is 10 years old, it doesn't work well, and it keeps dying, need to be rebooted, whatever it is. And for $500, you can go replace that computer. Something like that. Find something where they feel like you are totally behind them and with them and support them. I want to talk about this idea of the necessity of a team. You may feel like sometimes it's more a hassle than it's worth to have a team. You may think, holy cow, I could just do this myself. Why do I have to work through a team to get something accomplished? Well, I think I've got 3 really key reasons that you should have a team. One is that in simple history, we know that teams always succeed more than others. There's one particular, this is an old ancient proverb on the idea of defeating the competition. It says, 2 are better than 1, for if they fall, 1 will lift up his fellow. And though a person might prevail against 1 who is alone, 2 will withstand him. 3 are even stronger together. So this idea of a team allows us to compete well in the marketplace. We want to beat our competition, right? That's one of the reasons we're in business, is to succeed, to get more revenue, to decrease expenses, to increase profits, to go out and create purpose in the world for what we are doing in our various organizations. And to do that, we've got a vision of how we want that to happen. And so if we have a vision of how we want that to happen, we believe our vision is better than our competition's. And so we want to compete. And the way we compete and we defeat the competition is by putting good teams together. Another necessity for the team is I want to cover my weaknesses. This, again, it gets back to this idea of humility, where we have to admit that we don't know it all. We have to admit that we have weaknesses. I'm chairman of the board of a large nonprofit organization. And about a year ago, we had a new vice chair that came in to serve alongside me. And when he came into his role as vice chair, he said, "What can I do to help you?" And I said, "Cover my weaknesses." I said, "You're going to realize and you're going to see that you and I are different, and you're going to see that I have certain weaknesses. I need you to cover my weaknesses." So know your strengths and know your weaknesses, and then know the strengths and weaknesses of each of your team members. Because if you're going to direct a team, you're going to need to know which ones have different strengths. Some are going to be very analytical. Some are going to be the types of people who need to process and then speak. And some are going to be the type of people that just talk right off the top of their head because they need to think things out verbally. You're going to have people that are oriented towards numbers. You're going to have people that are oriented towards people. So all these strengths and weaknesses that they have, you need to make sure that you have this matrix of what are the strengths and weaknesses of each member of your team, and how do those cover your weaknesses so that you hire to cover your weaknesses and you're making sure you're hiring to cover other people's weaknesses within the organization. Another reason that you need the necessity of a team, you need a team, is for endurance. There's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This is a long-term operation. In our world, in our companies, we see them as generational businesses. This is not a sprint. We're building companies for decades and decades. And I know most of you are working in businesses where they have been around for a long time. Some cases you might be in a startup, and your desire is to have your companies, the companies you work at day to day, to be around 20, 30, 50 years from now. And that takes endurance. And the way we get to go for that long haul, for those decades, is by having a team and partnering up together for the future. At some point, you're going to have a chance to put together a team. Now, in some cases, what you do is you inherit a team, and then you're there running your team long enough, and you start moving the pieces in and out. You have to gather your team, and if it's a new team or it's one that you're changing out the pieces, you gather your team together. And now you have these various pieces. And so as you have these pieces, the things I want you to think about when you're selecting your team are, first is gather the team that's appropriate for the task. Look, if this little illustration, if I want to fry this egg, I don't need the gigantic pot on the left-hand side. I need the little frying pan on the right side. It's appropriate for the task. If I need a bookkeeper, I'm going to hire a bookkeeper. I don't go hire the best CPA I can find, right? I mean, hire the person that's appropriate for the task. When you're gathering your team, something's frozen. Hopefully you all can still, there we go. All right. When you gather a team, get the best you can afford, okay? That doesn't mean you get the best. Look, you may want the 2020 Range Rover that costs $100,000 in the United States, but you may only be able to afford the Honda Fit that's $16,000 in the United States. So get the best you can afford. That's the thing to think about. I mean, sometimes I think people say, you got to go out, you got to get the best talent. It's not just the best talent. It's the best talent that you can afford based on your budget. I mean, there are people I have wanted to hire. Just a couple months ago, was right before the pandemic, we were looking for a second administrative person in our family office. And it looked as though we had one person in particular picked out. We went to talk to her about the jobs and hiring her after we'd done a bunch of interviews. And we found out that she wanted double the salary that we had budgeted for her position. And so it was really simple. She wanted to be like the Range Rover. We could afford the Honda Fit. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're hiring the best that you can afford on your team. Gathering the team, that you want people that are complementary and diverse. So this is a picture of a jigsaw puzzle. I don't know about you, but I have a number of people in my family that love putting jigsaw puzzles together. In the midst of this pandemic and sheltering in place and being at home and no sports to watch or anything, at some point you run out of Netflix shows and things like that to watch on television. And so they got into jigsaw puzzles, and many of them have enjoyed these for years. The something that's interesting about jigsaw puzzle is the pieces are not the same. The pieces complement each other, and they're different. They're different colors, they're different shapes, they're different sizes, but they all fit together. And that's the idea of when you're putting a team together, you want people that are complementary and diverse. So they're not the same, but they complement one another, and they're different. They have different experiences, different backgrounds, because then you're gathering that type of information, that type of input that you need as you start making decisions and as you lead the business. Now, this is a picture of the little Lego blocks that I showed in the beginning. This entire picture of the boats and the cranes, all those are built with Legos. So this is just this thought of when you get all these pieces together, you put them together in the various complementary ways that they work together, you end up with something that's really beautiful and unique as you build your team and put it together. Successful teams, they are built on shared commitment. And I just want to talk to you about these shared commitments. So they're built on a shared commitment of purpose. And I think you all have done some one of the first sessions that I saw, within the past 4 or 5 months has been on this idea of purpose. And so purpose is, why do we do what we do? And it's important for us to understand that as the leaders, but we need to help our team. We need the team to understand, why do we do what we do? Why do we do this on our team? How does it fit together within the entire organization? And how does the organization, what's the purpose of the organization? Why do we do what we do? And then we need to build shared commitment to the vision. Where are we going? So if you have a bunch of Lego pieces, if you don't have in your mind's eye the ship you want to build, and probably even have it sketched out, right? You're not going to get a very good ship, and it's going to take a long time. So in our teams and in our companies, we want to think about, what's our vision? Where are we going? And then we want to build shared commitment to our values. These are guiding principles. These are like, what are we all about? So we need to think about, what are those values? And then we need to make sure that we're articulating those as they're established within the team and then broader within the organization. In many cases, if you're in a big organization and you're leading a team somewhere in the organization, those values are going to be coming in from the top or within the culture of the organization. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to articulate those values, live them out, and then articulate those values, those guiding principles. You want to articulate those to your team and help them understand those. And then we want to build shared commitment to the goals, what we want to accomplish. So the team, you want to bring them together is like, what are we going after? And let's set these goals out there to go accomplish some things, right? That's what we're trying to do, is accomplish things, is make things happen. And you need goals in order to do that. And when you have shared commitment to the goals, not only did this team come together, because now everybody knows this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to figure out, what does it mean to win, And so that is really important to help people understand what are our goals that we're going after and keep them focused on that. Another is shared commitment to one another. But you don't have to love each other. You don't even have to like each other on the team, but you have to be committed to each other for the achievement of the goals. You have to be committed to each other to achieve the goals of the organization and of your team. That's what I'm talking about, of a shared commitment to one another. You're in the foxhole together. You're in the trenches together. You're in the field together. You're on the line together. And you're doing it together for the benefit of one another. And finally, if successful teams are built on shared memories. If you think about that picture that I showed in the very beginning of my family in the French Alps looking into the Swiss Alps, I can tell you the reason we do that is to build shared memories. Because shared memories are what help, they're like glue for your family. They're like glue for your company. They're like glue for your team. That's why people do team building exercises. That's why they have large events where all the team members and all the company come together, because they want to build memories, shared memories. Sometimes it's not always fun stuff. Sometimes it's the hard stuff, the things we're going through right now in this pandemic, that in 2020, in the future, we're going to look back on 2020 and we're going to all remember this year. And it's going to be a hard year, but we're going to have shared memories from this year. So I want to jump over to the idea of leading teams. Whoops, sorry. And here are some qualities. I could come up with a whole list of them, but I want to just go through a few of the highlights. I think starting with the personal qualities for leading and for leading teams. Personal quality, I've talked about it before, is humility, being humble. When something goes wrong, the leader looks in the mirror to examine themselves and his or her own failures. And when things go well, the leader looks out the window to all the people in the organization, the people in the team, and looks for people to lift up and say, well done. That's the type of humility I'm talking about. If you've ever read Jim Collins's book, Good to Great, he talks about level 5 leaders. And they're very unique in Collins's research. And a level 5 leader is that type of person that has the humility when something goes wrong to look in the mirror and say, what did I mess up? How can I take responsibility? And how can I help lead us through this situation that I'm dealing with and that the organization is dealing with? And then when things go really well, it's how can I point out to other people and lift them up? That's the type of level 5 humble leader that people want to follow and partner up with. And then a great leader needs to be honest. This concept of honesty is a lot like a diamond where you can turn it and it has different colors and facets to it. This is honesty in terms of assessment of your personal abilities. This is being honest in the assessment of your direct reports and the people on your team. This is being honest in the feedback that you provide. Honest communication about the future. When we were in the midst of this pandemic, back in the very beginning of it, in end of March, beginning of April, at least that's in the United States when it was hitting us. And we were planning for what would happen next and what we would do. And I told people, look, at the leadership level, I said, our job as leaders is to think about the various bad scenarios and how we get through those. We know how to handle the good stuff. We're trained to handle the good things. What we need to do is realize that the bad might happen, and our job is to plan for what to do in the midst of the battle, in the midst of the bad. And so you have to be willing to be honest with the people on your team. Here's what we see on the horizon. Here's how we're going to handle it. They need to know that that's out there and that you are pursuing it and you're working towards success and survival. And if is tough, and it's going to be tough to survive. We need to be honest with people, but they need to know we've got a plan, right? It's not this, whoa, I don't know how we're going to survive this and I don't have a plan. That's not leadership. Leadership is having a vision for how we're going to get through this. Another personal quality that we talked about is you have to be competent. Find out what you're really good at and do it. Hardworking, as a leader, must always be seen as setting the pace. We always have to be seen as setting the pace. That doesn't always mean that you're in before everybody else. What it means is that you have to be setting the pace in terms of your intellect and your hard work and what you're striving for and going after. They have to feel like you are setting the pace and working hard. Leaders must provide vision for the future. We've talked a little bit about that. Where are we going and what does winning look like? This idea of what does winning look like and helping people understand that. I have some friends and business partners who attended the United States Army Military Academy. And when the Army is looking for a certain type of person, they have a test that they run. And that test is to tell people they're in a race and to start running, period. They have no idea where they're going, how long they're running, what the finish line is, what the objective is. They have no idea. I don't know about you, but that sounds really hard. It takes a special mindset to just start running and have someone say, I'll tell you when you can stop. That not only is it hard because I'm not a runner, but even if I were a runner, many of you might be runners, that's hard. At the end of a marathon, you cross the finish line. That's a lot of miles and kilometers that you run. But you have to realize that at least there's a finish line. People need to know there is a finish line. And then encourage debate is crucial for a leader. A leader needs to get their team debating and discussing and disagreeing. I know in the United States, we're generally thought of as to be rather aggressive, argumentative, open to a lot of debate. And I know in other countries around the world, that's not necessarily the case and the culture isn't the same. I get all that. But even within your culture, you have to figure out how do you draw out debate. If arguing and disagreeing is not part of the culture, you have to figure out how do I get the best out of people? If they don't want to be disagreeable, what's it going to take for you as a leader to draw out the best in people, even if it means disagreeing? I don't know what that's going to look like for you, but make sure you're drawing out the best. And in most environments, there's give and take, there's debate, there's discussion, there's a little arguing in the midst of that. And then finally, and we've talked about this before, is that leaders need to know the individual strengths and weaknesses of their team and their organization. And that means that you are putting people in the best position to succeed when they know their strengths and weaknesses.